this is my book of ideas. It is full of nonsense. It's just things that I think might be interesting and maybe worth putting into my stories. Nevertheless, I have a few pages here. Nothing particularly special, just some random thoughts. Like in my previous video, I'm really bad at writing, so a lot of this is just misspelled or wrong. I don't know. A lot of the ideas aren't super great, but again, it's just a book of ideas, and it's just a bunch of nonsense just to kind of put it into words, I guess. I'll go over each of them. Just wanted to show you what I have so far, and it's not a lot, right, compared to the rest of the book, but obviously pretty sure I'll have more ideas as I continue. So I guess just to start with, I had this theory of time travel, right? And so the way it works is, my idea is that dimensions are layers of observation, right? So in the first dimension, you just get the line, right? It's just a line. And then in the second dimension, you get up and down and left to right kind of concepts. And in the third dimension, ours, you get up, down, left to right, but then also forward and backwards. And it's just kind of the layer of reality we live in. So my thought process was that time similarly existed in these layers, but time's first, I guess, layer would be here on our third layer or dimension, right? So for us, we would observe it as something akin to a line, only forward and backwards. And so for us, that's kind of all we can perceive it as, right? The future and the past, even the present, but again, all within one line. So my theory goes into the idea of, if you're a fourth dimensional being, would you be able to observe more than just a line, right? Maybe not an up and down, but as opposed to us, where we can only go in one direction of that line, perhaps they may be able to be in different points in that line. Similarly, like how for us in the third dimension, we can physically be in different points in space. And so for them, it would be a similar concept to just simply move through time. But anyways, it's just a thought, and then it goes into detail on how time would be perceived, right? And just a few other concepts, comparing black holes and wormholes to each other, basically being a way to achieve that ability to manipulate time, or rather not time, but to manipulate your place in that line, the timeline, right? In my stories, there's an entity. He's literally just called Time. I know, very creative. That's his name. So he created a line. Well, for him, it's not a line, but for us, for our observations, it's a line, and that's how we perceive reality. Well, not reality. I'm sorry. Well, that's how we perceive our position in space, I guess, right? And so a higher level entity would be able to observe differently. Now, in my story, these gods, they're also third dimensional beings. They're not higher powers, so they are not able to observe his line any differently than we can. However, because they have their level of divinity, they're able to manipulate the line more than we could. And so my ideas kind of go into a few different concepts, right? So what if it's not actually particularly specifically a line, and instead is just a bunch of specific points of time kind of just put in a row, right? And if we were to take it up a notch, my thoughts would be, if you're a fourth dimensional being, what you would observe as a two-dimensional kind of line would be something akin to a spring, I guess, or just kind of spirals. Now, the spiral is still full of branches, I guess, right? And it goes over a few other thoughts, but most of these I've abandoned. So, now to the next one. Ending a black hole's life, right? So, ending a black hole's life is pretty simple. I mean, it's just, how could we intervene in the life cycle of a black hole and just kill it? And it just kind of goes over a few concepts that try to relate to it. So in this, basically you go over the idea that if a black hole its event horizon is removed or eliminated or whatever, the singularity would basically unravel, I guess, right? All the energy and matter that it absorbed would just come flying out, creating what is theorized as a white hole. That's not the theory for white holes, but white holes don't have a lot of solid evidence that they exist to start with. So, just the existence of white holes is a theory altogether. So, it goes over some concepts about how one could achieve this, right? And trying to explain that the materials that a black hole attempts to absorb become spaghettified and create this outer shell of just dense matter, but it's so spaghettified, it's basically a liquid or gas, maybe even, because it's just so broken down to the atomic level. And so it's just this kind of like cloud, right? And it's kind of like what helps hold the singularity and as a singularity. But if you were to take that away, it'd come undone. And with this immense amount of energy, the idea would be that you could use that energy to travel the time. So moving on has a different subject, but I guess I never labeled it. So this area basically goes over the death of a fourth dimensional being, what it would look like to us, right? Because in the fourth dimension, we'd be able to observe the inside and outside of an object all at once, basically kind of like rotate through it all. It's really trippy. So if a fourth dimensional being were to, I guess, explode, right? How would that transfer through into our dimension? And this is basically like, what if a fourth dimensional being's death of an explosion is our Big Bang? It's weird. It's weird. So this one's a bit of a weird one. So I try to go over a pretty abstract idea, basically. So if you were to imagine reality were to be simplified into individual, in this case, plateaus, right? Or pillars, right? Plateaus and pillars. Essentially, the idea is that with enough plateaus and pillars, you could build up a dimension, right? And with enough, you can build the first dimension, second dimension, third dimension, fourth dimension. And so that's why beings of lower plateaus can't go up, and the opposite is not true. One from higher could come down lower. Could being the key word, right? Not all higher plateaus can come down into the lower plateaus. Think of the edges, right? Some plateaus have smaller edges, allowing them to jump. Some don't, but in this concept, the idea is how would you use this idea to time travel? So if you were to be able to jump, why not jump into the pillar of time that holds up a lot of the plateaus, right? But anyways, super abstract. It was weird. And so this one is just, what if there are different variations of black holes, right? Like, what if there's a hollow black hole, a fake one, right? Where it's just that shell material, but on the inside there's no singularity. It's actually just like a planet or some shit, right? And then there's one where instead of a singularity, it's more of a wormhole than a black hole, but instead of jumping through the space of one universe, you can jump into another universe, right? The multiverse theory, I guess, right? And then there's the regular black holes. So it looks so weird, the depiction I made. So the way space is depicted to be warped is like on a fabric, hence the whole idea of fabric of reality, right? And so the idea is that a heavy enough ball will create a deep enough well that causes gravity, right? That's like sucks shut in. But this is where it kind of gets weird. So what if the well was so I don't even know how to describe it, was so extreme that essentially created a bubble on the other side, so it became more of like a door, if you could get past it, right, or through it even, you can get to the other side, which could be a planet or a whole universe in of itself, right? So just another thought. And then here's the Winds of Time. I kind of touched it back over here, but I kind of elaborated a little better. I also wrote a paper. I think I was at work when I wrote this, because it's pretty horrible. But basically this, so basically this one goes over time pirates, right? So the idea is that in the branching universe, there are winds, right? Winds of time. And on those winds, you could sail across into another timeline, or another branch of the timeline, right? And time pirates. This section just kind of makes it more simplistic, right? It basically says like the winds of time are what moves all these branches into one direction, allowing time to still flow, right, in that one linear way. And so, yeah, just super weird stuff. Just thoughts I've had, and I have implemented some of them, not all of them, but they're around. I also wanted to explain a few things. So I have started writing officially what I will consider the first book, and it is from the point of view of an entity. He calls himself All. He's a god of everything. He's not, but he's a little self-absorbed. I love him. So from now onward, for my online presence, I will be role playing as him as I do other things, right? But my online presence will be of this god, godly being. He is a fourth dimensional being who has traveled into our third dimensional plane for the sake of the story. And so he's the one who writes my stories and tells the tale. And so me, as the one creating the stories, I am also going to roleplay as him to further push that concept, kind of blur that line of creator and creation, just for the sake of I think it'd be fun. So just kind of like a heads up, I guess, for all the people who will never watch this video, but just so everyone's aware. Okay, so there's no confusion in the future as to why I act the way I do. So thank you.